When we enter our 60s, life starts to feel different in a very real and honest way. You look back at everything you pushed through in your 20s, 30s, 40s, even your 50s, and suddenly you realize some things simply no longer add value. Habits you tolerated, expectations you lived up to, and pressures that once felt urgent just stop making sense. This stage is not about proving anything anymore. It's about protecting your peace, honoring your time, and making each day count. So today, let's talk about 6 things that make no sense after 60, and why letting go of them brings a level of freedom and contentment that younger versions of us could barely imagine. The first thing that makes absolutely no sense after 60 is neglecting your health. When we were younger, it was so easy to push ourselves to the limit and feel like we'd bounce back without consequences. Late nights, fast food, stress-filled days, skipping exercise, ignoring sleep, believing we were too busy to slow down, it all seemed manageable. But once you cross 60, the body sends strong reminders that it needs more care, not less. This isn't just about living longer, it's about living your years well. Independence, mobility, mental clarity, energy, these become priceless. You realize that without your health, all the other plans and dreams you've tucked away for someday can slip through your fingers. And prioritizing health after 60 doesn't mean chasing impossible standards or trying to rewind the clock. It doesn't make sense to stress about having the perfect body or comparing yourself to younger folks at the gym. What matters is taking meaningful steps, eating what nourishes you instead of what inflames and exhausts you, moving your body in ways that keep comfort and mobility, giving yourself real rest instead of pushing past exhaustion, and managing stress before it quietly chips away at your well-being. This period of life rewards gentle consistency far more than intense bursts. And honestly, worrying about pride or ego around health at this age is another thing that makes no sense after 60. Self-care at this stage is not vanity, it's survival and dignity. It allows you to keep enjoying the hobbies you dreamed about, to travel if you want to play with grandkids without pain, to wake up in the morning feeling ready for the day instead of worn down before it even starts. After 60, honoring your health is honoring your life. Anything less doesn't make sense anymore. Another thing that makes no sense after 60 is tolerating draining people or situations. For decades, many of us tolerated far more than we should have: difficult coworkers, demanding bosses, family drama, friendships that weren't really friendships, people who only call when they need something, conversations that leave us exhausted instead of uplifted. When you're young, you often feel like you don't have a choice. You endure because you're building your career, raising a family, trying to please, trying to fit in, or simply learning who you are. But after 60, the truth hits. Time is too precious to spend it around people who bring stress instead of peace, judgment instead of support, noise instead of meaning. Letting go of draining connections isn't about bitterness, and it certainly isn't about becoming isolated. It's about choosing peace instead of chaos. It's about recognizing that every minute spent with someone who exhausts you is a minute you could give to someone who truly values you, or give to yourself. Drama, gossip, negativity, one-sided relationships, fake politeness, putting up with people who make you shrink instead of grow. Those are things that make no sense after 60. At this point in life, you don't have to win arguments, you don't need to force understanding, you don't have to fix everyone, and you don't owe toxic people closeness. Freedom after 60 often looks like smiling politely, stepping back quietly, and choosing not to participate. It means knowing you're not responsible for someone else's emotional mess. It means prioritizing your mental peace even if it means saying no, even if someone doesn't understand. It's not about being harsh. It's about being wise with your time and energy. You've earned that wisdom. And there's a calm power in simply not engaging in battles that don't matter. The more you honor your peace, the more you realize drama never deserved your attention in the first place. Truly, tolerating emotionally draining situations becomes one of those things that make no sense after 60. The next thing that really stops making sense after 60 is caring about what other people think. When we're younger, so much of life feels like a performance. We worry about appearing successful, smart, attractive, competent, impressive. We measure ourselves against images, expectations, and opinions, and half the time, we don't even realize we're doing it. But life has a funny way of stripping away illusions with time, and by the time you hit your 60s, you start to see the truth clearly. People aren't thinking about you nearly as much as you once believed. Everyone is wrapped up in their own worries, their own insecurities, their own lives. And the older you get, the more freeing that realization becomes. Chasing approval just doesn't make sense anymore. What is the point of shaping your life around someone else's standards when they're not the ones living your days or dealing with the consequences? Wearing clothes because they're age-appropriate instead of because they make you feel good, choosing hobbies that look respectable instead of ones that bring joy, staying quiet to seem polite instead of speaking your truth, those are patterns that need to fade. At 60 and beyond, you earn the right to live unapologetically. Not recklessly, not disrespectfully, just authentically. There is a huge difference. Every moment spent worrying about judgment is a moment you could spend enjoying your life. And after 60, joy becomes a priority instead of a luxury. Authenticity becomes peace, and pretending becomes exhausting. Freedom, after all, is not the absence of responsibilities, it's the absence of unnecessary pressure. That's why caring too much about opinions becomes one of those things that make no sense after 60. You've spent decades proving yourself. Now you simply live as yourself. That shift is powerful. It's quiet confidence. It's maturity. It's relief. And it's deserved. Now, before we move on in the second half of this script, feel the theme connecting everything so far. When you hit 60, life becomes less about surviving through expectations and more about choosing what truly matters. Neglecting your health stops making sense because your body deserves care. Tolerating draining people stops making sense because your peace matters. Caring what others think stops making sense because your identity is already shaped. No permission required. With each of these, life becomes lighter, calmer, and more fulfilling. So let's keep going because there are still several things that make no sense after 60 that can transform the way you live once you truly embrace them. And the next one is something many of us carry longer than we should: chasing outdated or irrelevant goals. For much of life, goals are everything. You push to get the better job, the bigger home, the nicer car, more recognition, more responsibility. You hustle, you sacrifice, you chase the next milestone on the horizon. And at the time, it makes sense. You're building, you're climbing, you're shaping your path and your future. But something shifts after 60. You start to notice that some goals simply don't belong to you anymore. They belonged to the version of you who needed achievement to prove something. Maybe to the world, maybe to yourself. They belonged to the phase of life when progress meant accumulation. Trophies, titles, assets, influence, even admiration. But now, the definition of success evolves. Success is no longer about having more. It becomes about needing less. You trade ambition for freedom, stress for peace, running for walking, competition for contentment. And here's the truth many people hesitate to say out loud. Some goals you used to chase would actually limit your life now instead of expanding it. That packed calendar, those non-stop commitments, the urge to stay busy just to feel productive, they no longer serve you. There is no prize for being exhausted at 60 or 70. There is no medal for never sitting down to enjoy a slow morning or a quiet afternoon. That's why constantly chasing the next external milestone becomes one of the clearest things that make no sense after 60. Instead, this chapter calls for a different approach. One where you choose goals carefully, focusing on what supports your health, your peace, your curiosity, your happiness. One where anti-goals can be just as important, deciding what you won't do anymore so you can make room for what truly matters. Maybe you no longer want to work full-time. Maybe you no longer want to deal with unnecessary obligations. Maybe you no longer want to say yes when every part of you wants to say no. That's wisdom, not laziness. This is the era of life where you don't have to earn rest, you've already earned it. The only question now is whether you'll allow yourself to enjoy it. Letting go of outdated pursuits isn't giving up, it's waking up. And speaking of letting go, here's another thing that stops making sense after 60, holding on to clutter and unnecessary belongings. Throughout life, we accumulate so much: souvenirs, gifts, sentimental belongings, clothing for every decade and every size, shelves of just-in-case items, drawers of forgotten things. At the time, we don't even notice it building up, because it happens over years, not days. But after 60, you start to realize that every object you keep takes up mental space, not just physical space. Clutter becomes work. It becomes noise. It becomes weight. And suddenly, the idea of holding on to things simply because we always have, well, that becomes one of those things that make no sense after 60. This phase of life asks a powerful question. Do the things around you add value, comfort, joy, or purpose? Or are they simply there because they've always been there? Your environment affects your mood, your energy, and even your health. A clean, simple, easy-to-navigate space supports peace. Keeping only what you use and love creates clarity and freedom. And letting go isn't about losing memories. It's about making space for the life you're living now, not the one you lived 20 years ago. A tidy home is not just organized shelves, it's an organized mind. Simplifying your environment is an act of self-care. And often, it brings a surprising lightness, as if you've lifted something heavy you didn't even realize you were carrying. When you see it that way, clinging to unnecessary stuff, physical or emotional, just doesn't make sense anymore. Now let's talk about another habit that loses meaning with time, comparing yourself to others. When we're young, it feels almost automatic to look sideways. Who's doing better? Who looks younger? Who has more? Who achieved something we didn't? Society trains us to measure, rank, compare, and evaluate endlessly. But after 60, a remarkable truth becomes clearer. Comparison is a thief, and it never offers anything valuable in return. It steals joy, it steals peace, and it distracts us from the life right in front of us. And honestly, comparing yourself becomes one of the most pointless things that make no sense after 60. Everyone ages differently. Everyone has walked a different path. Some grew wealth, some grew resilience. Some built families, some built careers, some built inner peace. Some faced unimaginable challenges and came out stronger. Some have scars others will never see. At this stage, happiness doesn't come from matching someone else's life, it comes from appreciating your own. The truth? There will always be someone with more, and someone with less. Someone healthier, someone struggling. Someone traveling the world, someone enjoying quiet mornings at home. The question isn't who's winning. The question is, are you content in your own life? We don't know what battles others face behind closed doors, and the older you get, the clearer that truth becomes. So instead of comparing, you begin valuing moments, memories, small joys, deep conversations, time with the people who matter, mornings without rush, evenings without stress. Gratitude replaces competition, and fulfillment replaces envy. That mindset shift is not just healthier, it's liberating. Comparison was always a trap. It just becomes easier to see the bars after 60. By now, a pattern has emerged. 6 things that make no sense after 60 have one thing in common. They take away more than they give. Neglecting your health drains your future. Tolerating draining people steals your peace. Caring about others' opinions limits your authenticity. Clinging to old goals traps you in another version of yourself. Keeping clutter weighs you down. Comparing yourself steals your joy. Letting go isn't loss, it's freedom. And freedom at this age is not a luxury. It's the reward of a life lived, lessons learned, and wisdom earned through decades of growth, mistakes, victories, pain, love, and experience. So as we wrap up, remember this. Your 60s are not the beginning of the end. They are the beginning of a new chapter where you finally get to choose what matters without apology. You're not chasing youth. You're embracing life as it is, with clarity and grace. The focus isn't on having more time. It's on making the time you have richer, calmer, and more meaningful. This is the season where joy isn't rushed, days don't need to be filled with noise, and life is measured by quality, not quantity. Let others run if they want to. You've earned the right to walk, breathe, enjoy, and choose peace. And maybe the biggest wisdom of all is understanding that aging isn't a decline, it's a refinement. You are not becoming less. You are shedding everything that no longer belongs to you. What doesn't make sense falls away, and what truly matters becomes brighter than ever. At this point in life, happiness isn't complicated. It's simple: health, peace, real relationships, meaningful moments, gratitude, freedom from pressure, and space to live life in your own rhythm. So as you move forward, keep asking yourself, does this add to my life or take from it? Does it bring stress or does it bring peace? Does it align with who I am now or who I used to be? Every time you choose what nourishes your well-being, you reclaim a little more of your freedom. And that is the real beauty of life after 60. Here's to living wisely, peacefully, joyfully, and fully. Here's to letting go of what never truly mattered and holding tight to what always did. And most of all, here's to understanding that the most meaningful years are often the ones spent being exactly who you are, without apology, without pressure, without pretending. That clarity, that ease, that calm, that's the reward of finally realizing what truly counts and letting the rest fade away.